Hello dear fellas, welcome to Chalk and Duster. I hope you all are doing great. This video will be the first lecture of the series where we will discuss the previous year CSR net questions and answers topic wise, and today we will deal with genetics. Say for example you have read the concepts from your book and like most of us you are feeling you can solve the questions and alone, or sometimes you feel like a kind of demotivated. Right. Well, this is what we have planned just for you. You can ask the doubts in the video in the comment section and we will try to help you with it in the next 24 hours. And obviously, you are going to have a quick revision of the important concepts topic wise. So, as I have qualified myself CSR net and I can share with you some genuine tips that worked out for me and while preparing for the CSR net. So, here you are. So yeah, these are the tips to evolve your preparation for CSR net. So these are the genuine tips, I have listed it here. Let's read it one by one. So don't try to memorize. So what happens when you remember or try to memorize things? Actually, this will not make your concepts clear, and so you will face difficulties while solving the 4 marks questions in the section C. And another thing is, if the questions will be a bit tricky and the things will be different as you have read from your books, then you will mess up the things there. So don't try to memorize the concepts. Then next thing is choose. Choose it wisely. So whatever subjects you like, be it ecology, evolutionary biology, molecular biology or developmental biology, whichever subjects you are good at, choose that subject only. And don't try to make everything in your control. So always choose those topics or those subjects in which you are having a command at. So, choose wisely. The next tip will be have a command on whatever you study. So, you are starting with some, let's say, cell biology. Then first suppose you are studying cell cycle in cell biology. You try to learn everything you are studying in cell cycle, or be it meiosis, mitosis, whatever, the molecular markers, everything. Then you move to the next concept. If you are just reading to know some basic concepts and then you are moving on to the next concept, then you are going to face difficulty in the future. So yeah, so choosing between study hard and study smart. So what is the difference? Basically, you need not be studying the whole 5 to 9 hours. Actually, you can study smartly. So you need to select between the topics, you have to make the concepts clear, you have to choose your favorite subject and have a command on whatever you are reading. Then you can be a smart learner rather than studying hard. Yeah, these are the 3 corner points or cornerstones that I feel for cracking CSR net is very much essential. I have numbered them from 1 to 3 and this numbering is also very vital. See, most of us what we feel is that having so many doubts in any concept while preparing for any type of exam is very bad thing, or that is what signifies we are having very less knowledge in a concept, or we are not that much brilliant in a subject. But that is actually a good sign if you take it positively. So you should have doubts. Only when you have doubts, then you will know that yeah, I am very much less confident, or I have not these concepts very clear, so I need to read them again so that I will not face the same difficulty in the exam. So this is about doubts. The next thing, once you have identified your doubts, in which section or in which concept, in which domain you are having more doubts, or which of the concepts you are very poor at, then you have to take very wise decision. So second is the decision. You have to make good decision and you have to decide where should I go, whether I should watch some videos about it, whether I should work out some more examples or work out some more questions to clear my doubts, or I should find some other way to make this concept clear. So this is your decision. We have to find it by ourselves, like what is best for us. So this is our decision that will help us in the second point. The third cornerstone is, after doing this 1 and 2, you should constantly be monitoring yourself whether we are developing ourselves day by day, month by month. If you are preparing in a long term for the CSR net, we should see our progress. So that will motivate us. If you will feel that yeah, these are the questions I was unable to do in the previous time, but now solving them easily, so that will have a positive impact in our preparation, and that will motivate to move us forward. Yeah, that's all about the tips. Let's move to today's first question. So here you are. This is the today's first question, and I have taken this from June 2016 CSR net, and this is from genetics section. So yeah, the question is saying, what is the genotype of a male Drosophila fly that has a yellow body color, red eyes? And what other information it is adding here? That brown is dominant over yellow and red is dominant over white. It means brown body color is a dominant phenotype compared to the yellow body color, and red eye is a dominant phenotype over the white eye color. And these are the allelic or genotypic representation of these phenotypes as shown over here in the bracket. So as the question is asking about the genotype of the male Drosophila fly, so you know that in any male, whether it is Drosophila or whether it is in case of human, always have one X and one Y chromosome. That is for no doubt. So keeping in mind the rest of the information, what we have to see that the last line it is written both means both these genes coding for yellow body color and red eyes, they are residing on the X chromosome. So whatever combination you are making, be it brown and white, yellow and white, red and white, that doesn't change this position on which chromosome it is. So obviously all these will be carried by the X chromosome. So let's find out what is the permutation and combination this will be present in. So as the animal or the organism is having yellow body color, so it means obviously it will have small y allele for body color. And what else? It is having red eyes, right? So red eyes is encoded by which allele? Here you are, this is the red and the allele corresponding is W plus. And another extra information I would like to add here for you, that wherever you see a plus sign in genetics, you will understand that this is the allele that is wild type, and here you have no plus over there, so you will understand this is not a wild type allele. So our answer is our X, W plus and Y. So first answer is our right answer, because W plus will encode for red eye and our Drosophila has red eyes, and Y is only Y, no Y plus, so it will encode for yellow body color, and that is what is mentioned in the question. The animal, the Drosophila fly is having yellow body color. So option 1 will be the right answer. I hope you understood this properly, and if you in case have any doubts still left, then you are very much welcome to mention it in the comment section, and so that I can clarify you. Okay, let's move to the next question. Yeah, here you are, and this is our second question, and this I have taken again from June 2000 CSR net, and this is all again from genetics section only. Let me read it for you. So it is asking the agrobacterium. This is a kind of bacteria. This mediates transformation, and this transformation is used to generate the transgenic plant. Transgenic plant means the plant that is having some foreign gene, and that foreign gene is called as transgene, and that plant is called as transgenic plant, as it is having a gene from any other animal or other plant or bacteria or fungi using a construct. Construct means generally a vector that will have the desired gene, the foreign gene, and that is what is construct means to or refers to, with a selection marker gene. If you are already acquainted with RDT and vectors and how transformation occurs, cloning vector, expression vectors, then you might have heard about the selection marker gene. So these are nothing but these are the genes that are put into those vectors. The vector is carrying your desired gene or transgene, and along with it, this is also carrying the selection marker gene. You are not seeing, right, whether your transgene is inserted into the vector, and the vector and plus the transgene are together inside your host cell, be it plant here in this case, and that is the plant. So you cannot see at such a molecular level, but to visualize that in a more fascinating way, you can use some selection marker gene. It can be of GFP. It means you are putting some transcript or genes that encode for green fluorescence protein inside that vector that is containing your transgene. If you are interested in seeing how this looks like, let me show you. So suppose this is your vector and this is containing the transgene. Suppose this is your transgene and the entire is a vector, and you want to know whether this is the whole construct and whether this is taken up by suppose this is our plant cell. My drawing is very bad, don't mind that. And whether this construct has been inside the cell or it is not inside the cell, or it is not taken up by the cell after transformation. So to visualize that, what we usually do, we put another gene which is called selection marker gene. We also call selectable marker gene. There is another kind of gene called screenable marker gene. So such genes usually help us or help researchers to see whether this whole transgene plus vector construct is taken up inside the cell. So if it is taken inside the cell, then it will produce some, if it is GFP, as all of us know, it will fluoresce green. So if this construct is inside the cell, then this kind of plant cell will produce green fluorescent signal. Then you will be sure that yes, our construct which is carrying the transgene is inside the plant cell. And this is about the selection marker gene. Next part of the question, let's see what it is saying. So the transgene which I was talking about, this is actually the passenger gene, it is saying, and the expression levels of the Y, these passenger genes, how much it is expressed. That is what expression level means. Protein in 8 independent transgenic plants. Means these are some 8 plants that are taken for this agrobacterium mediated transformation, and this bacteria is used to transfer. So this bacteria is actually carrying the construct I have shown earlier, and this bacteria is used to infect this plant, these 8 plants, all of them, and by which it can transfer the vector or the construct it has into the plant cell. So after this transformation experiment, what we are seeing actually the expression level, means how much of this gene Y, this passenger gene Y, how much of it is expressed in these 8 plants that are taken into consideration. You can see how they are expressed from 1 to 8. This graph represent a probable reason for the observed variability in transgene expression level. So you can easily infer from this graph that all of these plants are, although transformed using the same bacteria and containing the same construct that has this marker gene X and the passenger gene Y, and putting in them the same environmental conditions, same experimental conditions, still they are showing different expression level. You can see from this graph. So why this transgene, which is the passenger gene Y, why it is expressed in variable amounts in these 8 plants? So what could be the possible reasons? You have to identify or select the possible reasons from these A to D options. So let me read them for you one by one. So position effects on passenger gene. So this is a term from genetics, that is position effect. So to here there is a very heterochromatic region. You know that what does heterochromatic region means? Means they are very closely packed. So very highly condensed DNA is packed into a very small region. So this is a heterochromatic region, and the genes or the region of DNA that is lying over here, they are very less expressed. So if your Y is lying very close or very much in proximity to this heterochromatic region, then there is a high chance that your gene Y, whatever it is, in this case, let's say your passenger gene Y, if it is close to the heterochromatic region, then there is very less chance that this Y will be expressed in its normal level. So, for another example, if your gene Y is kept under the influence of an enhancer. Suppose there is an enhancer and this distance may vary. This distance may be very long enough or very short enough. This enhancer can be upstream here or it can be anywhere on this back side also. So this presence of this enhancer and heterochromatic region can highly influence the expression of this gene Y, and thereby the expression level may vary. So that can be one of the reasons why such variation appeared in these all 8 plants, which are independent 8 plants. So this could be one of the reasons. So obviously, yeah, this option is right. Let's see whether the rest of the options are right or wrong. So next option is saying transgene silencing of the marker gene. So this is our marker gene, that is X. Suppose let's say our selectable marker gene that is there. Suppose this is the part of the construct. I am showing only the X and Y region, not the entire vector. Suppose this is our selectable marker gene and this is the region containing our passenger gene, that is our transgene Y. How you are knowing that this much expression is found in the first plant, this much in the second, third, and so on? Actually, by seeing this, the expression level of this selectable marker gene only, you are saying that plant 1 has this much expression of the gene Y, and like that. So if your transgene itself is not allowing the selectable marker gene to express, that is what means by transgene silencing of the marker gene. And let's see the next 2 options. And a variation in copy number of the passenger gene. So you can have the copy number variation, means suppose you can have 1 passenger gene, you can have 2 passenger gene, you can have 3 passenger gene. So that's why depending upon the number of passenger gene you can have various level of expression in different plant. It means your plant 1 may be having very less number of copies of this transgene or passenger gene Y here, and very high number of passenger gene Y here. That is why there is a high amount of expression of the protein that is encoded by the gene. So it could be one of the possible reason. Then mRNA instability of the marker gene. It is obviously this is a wrong option. Why so? I am telling. Because while performing the experiment, the researchers keep in mind that whatever selection marker it is, mRNA, its protein are all viable and not unstable. So that is why they are going to help us visualize how much proteins are expressed inside the cell, whether transformation has occurred correctly or not. So this case is not going to be true. And transgene silencing of the marker gene, this is also not going to be happen, because before performing the experiment, the researchers generally keep in mind that the marker gene itself is not silenced by the transgene. This is not going to be the answer. So your A and C options are right, and the option 1 will be the correct option here. So let's move to the next question. Again, this question is taken from genetics section, and it is from June 2017 CSIR Net. So let me read it for you. So what it is saying is that somatic cell hybridization. It means 2 of the somatic cell, they will hybridize, and this technique will be used to assign a gene to a particular chromosome. It means you are finding where a given gene is located in the genome, whether it is in chromosome 1, chromosome 2, chromosome 10, chromosome 7, where it is in the genome of the organism. And the technique used is here somatic cell hybridization. When 2 cell lines means nothing. These are the cells that are immortal. Your normal cells of your body generally undergo a given rounds number of cell division, and after that they will not be able to divide anymore, and at this stage they have reached to their replicative senescence. So that limit of division is called Hayflick limit. That is a number after which the cells are not going to divide anymore due to the telomere shortening and all sorts of those things. These cell lines, how they are different from the normal cell is that these cell lines, due to certain mutations in their genome, they can actually divide indefinitely. They have no constraint on the number of cell division that they can undergo. So they are immortal kind of. What else information you are getting in this question is that the cell lines are obtained from two different species and they are fused. So let me show it to you pictorially. As you can see, this is the cell line from one species and this is another cell line from a different species, and both of these are allowed to fuse. So the question may be arising in your mind, how two cells that are having a complete lipid bilayer can be made to fuse. So we have special chemicals called PEG. So polyethylene glycol is one such chemical that when added to the mixture of cells, then they are induced to fuse their plasma membrane or cell membrane, and they will form a sort of hybrid kind of thing, and the nucleus that will be formed thereafter will contain the genome from both of these cell lines. And as you can see here, it is containing the green and red, both of the genome from this, you can say two of the different species, and the cell is a hybrid cell and this nucleus will be called as a heterokaryon. So let's read the question. When two such cell lines, green and red, from different species, two different species are fused by the help of the PEG, then they form a heterokaryon. Heterokaryon means, hetero means two different, karyon means nucleus, which tends to be losing some chromosomes as they divide. So this hybrid cell will go on dividing, and after certain stages it will lose the chromosomes from one of the species, either from this species or from this species. It will either lose the red chromosomes or the green chromosomes. So a panel of cell line was created from the mouse monkey somatic cell fusions. So the red and green cell that I have shown here is actually from mouse and monkey somatic cell lines, and they are allowed to fuse, and great number of these hybrid fusion products are collected, and each of these fusion line was then examined. For what? For the presence of monkey chromosomes and the production of a given enzyme. These two factors are monitored. So whatever fusion product or fusion cells are obtained from these two fusions, from the fusion of the monkey and mouse cell line, then those fusion cells were looked whether they are carrying the monkey chromosome and whether they are carrying a given enzyme, and the data whatever is obtained there is represented in this table. So you can see these are the cell lines, 6 cell lines A to F, and here in this second column whether they are carrying the enzyme. If they are carrying the enzyme, then there will be a plus, and if there no enzyme is present, then there will be minus sign. And in the third column you can say there will be the presence of monkey chromosomes. If these 1 to 10 are nothing but the chromosome number, and whether the cell line A is carrying the monkey chromosome number 1. If yes, then that is marked as plus, and so on and so forth. So you are looking for, on the basis of these results, which chromosome has the gene that codes for the given enzyme. So you have the data that whether the enzyme is present or whether the chromosome is present in all these 6 cell lines, but the question is asking whether you are inferring something by looking at this data, that the enzyme is producing from some gene, and the gene for that enzyme is present on the chromosome number 1, chromosome number 2, chromosome 3, or on chromosome 10, where it is located. That is what asked in the question. So for that, let's first find out in which of these 6 cell lines the enzyme is present. So it is present in A, B, D and F. So if all these 4 lines have the enzyme, they must be carrying the gene in one or another of their chromosome. Right, so let's see one by one which chromosome is present in the cell lines that are carrying the enzyme, that is A, B, D, F, and is not found in the cell line that is lacking the enzyme, that is the C and E cell line that are not having the enzyme. So essentially they should not be containing the chromosomes and that are carrying the gene for this enzyme. Let's see this chromosome number 1. It is present in A but it is not present in B. So this should be striked out. But in chromosome number 2 is present in A, that is fine. This is present in B, that is also fine. But it is also present in C. So if the chromosome number 2 is carrying the gene for this enzyme, then that enzyme should also be present in the cell line C. But the cell line C is not carrying the enzyme. So the gene is not found in the chromosome number 2. Let's see for chromosome number 3. Chromosome number 3 is present in cell line A. That is fine. Here comes the default. So chromosome number 3 is absent from the cell line F, but it is carrying the enzyme. So the gene for this enzyme is obviously not present in the chromosome number 3. So 3 is also not the chromosome containing the gene for this enzyme. So let's see for fourth chromosome. You can see here it is fine, but fourth chromosome is although not present in the cell line B, still it is producing the enzyme. So how can be the gene coding for this enzyme lie in the chromosome number 4? Because fourth chromosome is absent in B and still it is producing the enzyme. So that is why the gene is not on the fourth chromosome. And for fifth chromosome is absent from D cell line. Still it is producing the enzyme. So chromosome number 5 is also not carrying the desired gene. Chromosome number 6, it is also absent from the cell line A, which is producing the enzyme. So that is also not the right option. Chromosome number 7, in chromosome number 7, all the A, B, D and F, the 4 cell lines that are carrying the enzyme are having the chromosome. So it might be one possible answer. So let's see for 8th chromosome is absent in A but it is producing the enzyme, so it is also not the answer. And 9th chromosome is very much funny. It is present in all 6 cell lines, but the cell lines C and E are still not producing the enzyme. So if the 9th chromosome is carrying the gene for this enzyme, then it should have been the enzyme should have been present in the C and E cell line as well, but that's not the case. So our chromosome number 9 is not carrying the gene for this enzyme. And chromosome number 10 is absent from the cell line B and still it is producing the enzyme. It means the gene is not present in the chromosome number 10. So it is also not the right chromosome. So our answer will be chromosome number 7. So here the second option is the chromosome number 7, and this is the chromosome where our gene that is coding for this enzyme is present, and this particular chromosome is found in all those cells only that is showing the presence of the enzyme, and is absent. This chromosome number 7 is absent from all those cell lines where the enzyme is absent. Let's move to the next question. Another question, this is from June 2015 and from genetics only. So what it is telling is that the genes A, B and C control 3 phenotypes. They are asserting independently, means they are not linked. These 3 genes are not linked. And a plant with the genotype A small a, B small b, C small c is selfed. What is the probability for gene which shows the dominant phenotype for at least one of the phenotypes controlled by genes A, B and C? So what you are thinking is the right answer. The question is asking, so whatever the progenies will be produced from this cross, the individual having the genotype capital A small a, capital B small c and capital B small b. So individual with such a genotype, when it will be selfed, then whatever progenies will be produced from it, how many of the progenies from that will have the dominant phenotype, at least one dominant phenotype. At least one means either the dominant phenotype controlled by capital A or the dominant phenotype controlled by capital B, or the dominant phenotype controlled by capital C. You can have it is written at least one. It means you can have at least one, or you can have two, you can have three also. So minimum of one dominant phenotype, it is the minimum requirement, but for the maximum you can have the three dominant phenotypes together also. So that is not a problem. So for that we have to look for the genotypes of the progeny. For the what is the minimum pre-requirement, the type of gametes that will be formed when this parent will be selfed. So let's see. So this is the parents when it will be selfed. Selfed means the same genotype will be present in both the parents. I am showing here, these are the 8 gametes that will be produced, and this box is nothing but this is a box how to write the combination of gametes that will be produced. So for that, what you have to do, we are talking about 3 genetic locus: locus A, locus B and locus C. So you are seeing that in this parent had the locus A, it has 2 type of alleles, capital A and small a, and both these allele it can contribute to the next generation, right? And at the B locus is also heterozygous and it has capital B and small b allele, both it can contribute for gamete formation. And at the C locus is also heterozygous, it can contribute both capital C and small c for gamete formation. And another information is that here in the question it is mentioned that all these 3 genes, wherever they are located in the chromosome, they are asserting independently, they are not linked. So you can make such a table for finding what are the type of gametes that will be produced. So these are the 8 type of gametes that will be produced from this cross or from this selfing of the plant that is given in the question, right? So after you have with you this 8 type of gametes, then you can go for the what are the possible type of progenies that will be produced after this crossing. So let's see, this is a table and these are the gametes. Here it is mentioned it is a plant. So let's say these are the male gametes genotypic makeup, and these are the here this is the female gamete genotypic makeup. And after you make such a table, you will get to see that only this individual, except this individual, there are total 64 of the progeny in this cross. 8 into 8, 64. We have 8 gametes in the previous table. I have showed you that from this selfing we have 8 gametes. So when there will be 8 gametes, then 8 gametes will fuse with the opposite type of gametes, another 8, then they will produce 64 type of progenies. It means the progenies 64 progenies will be produced from this kind of cross, and out of this 64 only one progeny will be there in which there will not be any capital alleles. It means there will be no capital A, no capital B and no capital C. If at least one of these capital alleles, whether it is A or B or C, will be present in any of these progeny, then it will be able to produce at least one of the dominant phenotypes. And this situation is present in rest of the 63 except and only this last progeny, the last combination of alleles, that is here. All the 3 loci are having the small allele only, and this is the only one case, and rest 63 are able to produce at least one of the dominant phenotypes. So your answer will be what? So 63 of your progeny are able to produce at least one dominant phenotype out of 64. So this is your answer. So let's see which of the options. Option 3 is your right answer. So you need not actually perform such a big table. Before doing that only, so wherever there will be asked like all the alleles will be recessive and all the recessive phenotype will be there, then there is only one genotype that will have a pure, at all the locus there will be a recessive allele only. So that is only one in every case. So you need not go for all this lengthy process. You can easily remember this fact. And I thank you all for watching this video completely. So do like, share and subscribe and help us grow with you.